That didn't take long. That's it. Evening, everyone. Oh, I got this stupid background on again. It does my head in sometimes. Let me. Yeah, you can put up with the messy office instead, but at least you can see all of me.
Evening all.
Okay, so the idea of this one, and I've now got to work out my screens. The idea of this one was basically just to take people through sequence generator. If you haven't used it before, it's pretty straightforward. But again, I'm happy to be guided by people. So if what I start talking about seems a little too basic, feel free to flag, and we can move things along. Or if you've got any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those as well. So, with that said, I've got to now move my screens around just to make sure that I need another set of monitors. That's a problem. That's not going to work either, is it? Okay, so we'll have that over there. Right. So I will share that screen. Hopefully you can now see basically the opening screen of Sequence Generator. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
No visual. Yes. I now spot the problem when we have no audio feedback with people. Okay. So this is a brand new installation of Sequence Generator. So if you're downloaded the trial for the first time and you install it, this is what you get when you first open it up. I'll talk about all these different panes and what they are. And the latest version is 3.1.0.519, and I have to say there's some nice updates in this particular version. Okay, so all these little modules here, you can drag these and move them around to your heart's content. But after a little while, it gets a bit annoying and gets a bit cluttered. So with these panels, you can move them around and you can dock them to wherever you fancy putting them. And by doing that, all you need to do is you grab hold of a window and you can see that there is now this little button appear on the left hand side, and if I drag that screen over it, you get a blue highlight, and what that says is I'm going to drop that panel onto that blue bar and it docks that in place. You then take the next one that you want to put over there, and now we get a slightly different set of buttons. We get one at the bottom, we get one at the top, and we get one in the middle. So again, you can drop those panels wherever you fancy in order to make your environment work for you. So I am just going to turn some of these bits off because we don't necessarily need all of those, and just quickly chuck some stuff around. We'll have, and the same on the other side as well. So again, I move this box over here on the right hand side, I get the blue highlight, and I can drop that window over there. So I'm just going to drop some bits, and you can again, you can change position. If you drop one above an existing one, it will make room for it and squeeze in. We're going to close that one. Oh, we don't have a rotator. We'll close that one. We will have that. Telescope, yes, we better see what we're doing with the telescope. Temperature, not to worry about. Filter wheel, we'll have. So again, you can, observatory, no. You can make this look however you like. Target markers, and we'll put PhD down there. There we go. That looks a little bit tidier. So you can have, and you can happily spend hours chopping and changing that around. Sequence Generator will record that when you exit the program. It will basically remember those, so next time you open it, that is all saved, ready to go for you. Okay. So that's that. The other thing I have also done in preparation for this is I have installed the local astrometry server. I wasn't planning on covering plate solving per se tonight, but if somebody has a question for it, I can do that. The other thing that I've also then installed, which if you're going to do all that sort of stuff, is you would need to download the catalogs. And for this one, I've downloaded the UCAC3PS catalog and installed that. It's free to download. And on the sequence generator help files, you can find the links in order to go and download those. But I'll make sure we put those links up into the forum so you can get those should you want them. Okay, that makes sense. It's a quick run through of that. Any questions so far?
It does. Do you want me to? There's only 20 odd people. Is it worth unmuting people if they want to pipe in, or?
Do you know what I was going to say? I was going to say exactly that. I think that's probably worth doing.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to talk,
is Dave Harvey on? Is he going to play his guitar? Good man. You give me some pointers later. Right.
Blind lead.
Sorry, mate. Say that again.
Hopefully, he's not the blind leading the blind.
Might be the tone deaf, but anyway. So a quick run through then the various menu options, and we'll come back to the buttons on the toolbar. But essentially, the buttons are they relate to the panels that I was just dragging around and playing with. There's a couple more that we need to look at, and we'll come back to those. So under File, we've got the various options that you might expect. There are a new sequence, opening sequences and opening images, saving sequences, applying profiles to images, and we'll come back to those as well. And here's where you can import targets. So if you've used other applications, Deep Sky Planner, Astro Planner, or whatever, you can now use those and import those targets into your sequence. Or, as you can see from the bottom, a sequence generator sequence, which might seem a little odd, but in previous versions you couldn't do that. You had to create it from scratch. So that's actually very useful to build up a bigger sequence from ones that you've already got established. Under the view, we can see there are the view sequence, and again we'll come back to that window shortly. Control panel, big status. Oh, where's that one gone? Over there. Big status is very useful. If you're not at the screen all the time, you can have that running, and it's a little bit clearer. If you're some distance away, you can see exactly what's going on. That's always very useful. And if you find that your docking modules have got into a bit of a mess, and you think, oh, actually, I'd like to reset those. Under docking modules, the very last option says reset module layout. I'm not going to click it, but it would then reset all of those panels back to square one. Under sequence, we reset the sequence. We can reset the sequence, preserving the current progress. Reset to targets. We can restart the current frame. So options to do with the actual sequence itself. We'll talk about the sequence files and the image browsers a bit later. And then under tools, there's lots of bits and pieces here. Flats wizards and profile managers we'll come back to shortly. The calibration wizards, flats calibration wizards, temperature and compensation training. It's got an image grading tool built into it. You can look at image history. It'll tell you what's gone on with your images over a period of time. You might have heard of people talking on the forums about the framing and mosaic wizard. Why have all my windows suddenly started appearing over the other side? We'll take a little look at this a bit later on, but this is a great way of being able to frame your targets. Even if you're just doing a single panel, it was originally designed for doing mosaic. So if you want to do sort of 4 or 6 panels at any one time of a bigger object, but it's great for doing single panels as well in order to get some good framing. And we'll have a look at that, how that works in a bit more detail. Sequence profile migration, it's not really relevant anymore unless you're running a very old version of sequence generator. Window, close all images, and then under help there are all the various options that you might expect under a help menu. Keyboard shortcuts, you can check for updates, you can go to the website, There's learning resources. Excuse me. There's the main sequence software forums, free to join and well worth joining. They also offer what's called an API, an application programming interface. If you are so inclined, you could actually write your own programs and scripts and interface directly with some of the functions in Sequence Generator. Certainly beyond what we're going to do today, but if you're interested in that, that's where you could learn more about that. Register your computer. Your license gives you 3 computers or 3 installations. So you can manage those directly from within the application itself. And if you're running a trial version, you can request that they extend that trial for you if you hadn't had enough time, or the weather doesn't play ball. I know that's very difficult to believe in the UK. It does happen on the odd occasion. Okay, so let us then start to set up Sequence Generator and make it a little bit more useful. So I'm going to have a look at 2 of the profiles first. The first one is the User Profile Manager. And the User Profile Manager allows you to set up different locations, basically, or different people according to where you are. So I'm going to do something very simple. So I'm going to call this one Home because that's where I am. I could give it a name if I so wanted to, and here I could then obviously set my site latitude and longitude. So I am 52 degrees and something or other north, and I am north 30-ish west. The auto-populate is supposed to be able to use your location and go away and, as its name suggests, auto-populate that field. I did try when I installed this, but either the application doesn't have access to my location. I'm on Windows 10, so that is probably the reason for that. I'm going to put a tick in the box that says use the profile as default for new sequences and hit save. Oh, I've got to put the name in there. That would be useful. Home, and click save, and that now then appears there. If the scope was connected, I could click the import from the scope button and it would do exactly that. It would use the connection to the telescope or the mount, go away, get those coordinates and bring those back and populating that if you wanted to. That's relatively straightforward. You can have as many of those as you want. On my laptop that I take to star parties, I've got the various sites at Kelling and Luxall and wherever else that I tend to travel around to. So that's very useful. The Equipment Profile Manager is the next one we're going to have a look at. The best way to think of the profiles is like a template. So when you create a sequence, it would be based off of one of these profiles, and we can set up, as you see from the tabs there, camera and filters and focusers and telescopes, plate solvers, and so on. And of course, you can have lots of different setups. You can see in the list here, in the default list they give you, there's one for LRGBs and one for narrow bands. But you can have as many of those as you need to. And like I say, it's a template more than anything else. So when you create a sequence, you apply that profile, your selected profile, to that sequence. But you can then go and change that profile to anything else. What doesn't happen is that your sequences do not get updated with those profile changes. There's a way to do that, but it's a bit manual. So they are not linked to the saved sequence. It is like I say, it's a template, and you are then free to change those as you need to and as you use those profiles. So let's create a new one, because it's the interface is just ever so slightly quirky in this respect. So I'm going to click on the LRGB template, and it will load that. There's not anything set up for it, but that's beside the point. But it would load that template for me. So let me just set up simulators. We'll have a focuser. Yes, that would be fine, and we'll have simulated telescope. We won't do the plate solving. I'm then going to save that, and that has saved successfully. Jolly good. I can now go and change that name. So instead of calling it the RGB template, I'm going to call it what I would normally set my profile name to for my filter wheel. So I've got clear, red, green, blue, and luminance in mine. I can now click save, and it's now made essentially an exact copy of the LRGB and the into the CRGBL profile. Do you see? Does that make? Do you see how that works? That makes sense. So if I go to change something in that template, it will tell me. Absolutely, it will tell me. So if I put a tick in here and then go to change template, it will tell me. Hello. Thank you. It will tell me that the profile has changed. Do I want to save it? Yes, I do. And then it carries on. So you can now see that that tick box is now changed between those two. So you do have to be a little bit careful. It can be easy to change the wrong template. And I've done that before. I have loaded the wrong set of filters into the wrong name template. I'm wondering why my red filters are, or the lights from my red are really, really dark because I've been running against the HA filter, for example. So it's very easy to do that. So just be a little bit careful with that. Okay, so let's have a look at the parameters that we've got in here. If your camera is cooled, you can have it cool down when the camera connects, i.e. when we connect sequence generator to it. You can have it cool down when the sequence starts, and you can have it warm up when the sequence completes. And then just above that, you can see that we've got some temperature and time boxes. So I'd like it cooled down to -10, please, over a 10-minute duration, and warm up to 5 degrees, again, over a 10-minute duration. And as I say, sequence generator will perform those actions when we start the process. When the sequence finishes or indeed stops for any reason, with that tick box, it will then turn off the cooler and start to warm the camera up. In this box of setting specifications, you can set your rotational angle if you know what that is. I have to say I don't tend to bother, mainly because the plate solving is pretty good at working that one out anyway. But the scale is important. You do need to know what your pixel scale is, certainly again for using plate solving. If you don't know what that is, it's your camera manufacturer should be able to help you with that. Or you could upload an image to the astrometry.net server and have that calculate it for you. Or you could use the astronomy.tools web page from Flow and put your scope and camera details into that, and it will calculate what your image scale is for you as well. If you know what your readout noise is, you can put it in that box here, and this helps. And I have to say, I've never really used this, but in the image statistics, supposedly it can help you work out what your ideal exposure time is. I've never got that to work, is the honest answer, so I don't tend to worry about it too much. The other thing that is important though is your sensor size in pixels, so your width and the height in pixels of your sensor. Again, absolutely vital for doing plate solves. Over here on the right hand side, we've got gain. I'm never entirely sure what gain means until I started using the ZWO camera, and then you get a great big drop down list of what these numbers are. And gain, Grant, you might be better to explain because you're a bit of a ZWO expert. I'm glad you're on the call actually, but this is a bit like what's
like
the word
ISO kind of.
Yes, thank you. So these are generally used for sort of CMOS cameras, I suppose. So again, your manufacturer would tell you what's called the unity gain, what the standard gain is, and you can set that accordingly. Again, it supposedly helps you calculate what the ideal exposure time is. I have to say, with my CCD camera, I've never had to worry about that. Come back. Oh yes, under cameras, by the way. So by default, it will support Canon cameras. It supports Nikon cameras, QSIs, SBIGs, ZWOs, or of course, good old ASCOM cameras. Where's my ASCOM camera? Yeah.
You haven't installed ASCOM?
I have installed ASCOM. I definitely did install ASCOM, but of course I haven't got my own camera plugged into it, which is why I can't see it. But that's fine. Clicking on the settings will bring up various options for your particular camera. Again, this is a simulator, so it's fairly basic. Where's the V2 simulator? There's a better one. Lots more options on the V2 simulator. Clearly, that's going to be applicable to your particular camera. But again, out of the box, it supports Canons and Nikons, as well as QSIs and SBIGs as well. If you know your download times, and this is desperately not important, but if you do know your download times, you can import those into there. Obviously, some of the larger sensors can take several seconds to download when you're running it unbinned. Under filters then, relatively simple interface. And again, clicking on the settings, you can then set up your filters accordingly. Again, this is the simulator, so it's going to look different according to your particular filter wheel.
Oh.
What you can also do then is in this button, in the set filters, is probably more useful, because this is then where you can set up which filters you want Sequence Generator to use, which filter names you want to use, and you don't have to pick from the selection. You can type your own in. So did I pick up? Yes, I did, didn't I? So clear for my first one, and then I've got red and green and blue and luminance in the 5th position. The autofocus exposure, so if you're going to use the autofocus functionality, you can tell Sequence Generator what time you want that to be for those filters, and it will do that accordingly. So let me just quickly set those. And then the focus with filter. Now, the first one is the default filter, and you can then decide whether or not you want the autofocus routine to use the default filter or to use its own specific, or rather the individual filter itself. Why am I not getting that option? Five focus offsets. That might be why. There we go. Yes, I hadn't ticked the focus offsets. So yes, so that filter wheel supports what's called focus offsets. So instead of going away and finding focus, it would move the focuser to a specific position. And we can use that. It needs to have that enabled in order for that option to work. So what I can say to Sequence Generator is, instead of focusing on the red filter, use the default filter, but when I put this value in here, it is going to adjust that position accordingly. So that didn't come out at all well. So default focus position is 1000. That focus position is 1005. And because I'm using a good quality set of filters, they're very nearly parfocal. Supplied by the best retailer in the world, of course. Okay. So what that essentially means, I'll try and put that just a little bit better. Oh, click on that button. Is when it comes to focusing with the red filter, instead of performing a focus with the red filter, it's going to do it via the clear and then it will adjust the focus position by the difference between those two. Okay. Of course, you can focus with the red filter, that's fine. But when you're doing narrowband filters, and they're typically they're longer exposures, that might be preferable rather than doing several seconds of exposures and focusing routine, that you're doing it with the clear, and then there's just a small offset to apply to those filters. That works very well. It does work very well indeed. And of course, you can have that as a lower number. That might be 998, and Sequence Generator will make that adjustment. It is also temperature independent, I guess is the way to say that. So although they are set at 1009.98, if because of temperature variations that had now moved to 1050, Sequence Generator would know that, work it out, and would still apply the 2 steps difference between the two. So you wouldn't have to worry about the fact that your red filter is going to move back to 998 when the clear filter is up at 1050. It will work that and do that for you. Was that clear? Did that come across? Did that come across okay?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Shout if not. The button at the end then is for flats, if you are going to be taking flats, and of course as good astro imagers, that's what we should do. Here you can, if you know what those times are, you can input those times at your different biddings if you're using different bidding values. If you have a light box with a variable brightness, you can also set that value in there as well. And you can also tell it how many flats you want in a flat event, and Sequence Generator will do that. In fact, let's not do it in there, let's put it in the red. That is 1.5 seconds, and I want 11 in there, and we'll see that come through later. There's also a different way to calculate the flats, and I'll touch on that a bit later as well. Okay. If you're not using flats data, you can just set those values in there anyway. Focusing. So again, if you're using an automatic focuser, again, this is where you do all the setup of the ASCOM driver. That's what the simulator looks like. Again, yours is going to be slightly different. You've then got these fine focus step size and coarse focus step size. Clearly you can put some values in there. So 20 steps on the fine, 150 steps, for example, on the coarse. You have got the option of reversing direction. If your focuser actually moves outwards when everybody else moves inwards or whatever, you can swap those around. You can have a focus reminder set, so you don't have to use, if you've got no automatic focuser set, you can still have the focus reminder set, and you can tell it to remind you every X number of frames or every X number of degrees change if you're monitoring the temperature, every number of minutes, force focus on the filter change, or you can have combinations of all of those. You can have all of those ticked if you so wish, and you'll get a reminder literally every other minute to tell you to do a focus run. If you want to use autofocus, tick on that box. And I'm not going to run through this in a huge amount of detail. We will do that in another session, though, most definitely. But this is where you set up, and again, you've got the same sort of notification or the same sort of parameters to run the autofocusing. But this is where you would set up your autofocus parameters. And the key one here, excuse me just for a second. Sorry about that. Is the step size and the number of data points when you're using the autofocus. But again, we'll come back to that in more detail, I think, at a separate session. But that is where you would configure your autofocusing options. Remember I said about the focusing per filter? Well, there's a tick box which allows that to happen. So if I tick that, it would then use the red filter in order to focus the red filter, as opposed to using an offset against that red filter. And again, if you've got temperature compensator or temperature monitoring going on, you can enable the temperature compensation. Framing and focusing, which is one of the docking modules up here, you can set by default the size of binning and the exposure you want to use for that frame of focus, and Sequence Generator will use those. Telescope then is where we actually make the connection to our telescope. So again, I'm using the simulator, and again, you've got some options here what to do at various points. So parking the telescope when a sequence completes, and that's slightly misleading because sequence completes also means sequence fail. So if the sequence stops for some reason, do you want that to park the telescope? Do you want it to stop tracking? So obviously different from park, just turn the motors off. Very useful. Do you want to allow external control of the telescope? Again, outside the scope of what we're talking about here, but you can have Sequence Generator act as a sort of client server across TCP/IP, but we're not going to worry about that. Auto Meridian flip. Meridian flips always put the fear of God into lots of people because it's really scary. So if you don't know what it is, this is where your telescope reaches the point where the weights are going to start to come above the horizontal and the scope starts to move below the horizontal. And basically what needs to happen is we need to flip it round. We need to change that position, but at the same time, the OTA is going to also flip its position, so it's pointing, hopefully, where it left off. Putting a tick in that box will allow Sequence Generator to try and do that auto Meridian flip. However, you need to make sure it is set in the driver. And one of the biggest gotchas we see is certainly with things like EQ mod. If you don't have that enabled in the telescope driver, then Sequence Generator is obviously not going to do that. In the settings is where you set up the conditions for that Meridian flip. Do you want to wait for it? And what that basically means is Sequence Generator will look at how much time it has got to go before the flip and how much time the next image will take to complete. And if the first one is greater than the second one, it will allow you to take the image. If not, it will wait, and it will wait until it is time to actually do the Meridian flip itself. If you pause before the Meridian flip, a dialog box will pop up and there'll be some user interaction, i.e. I need to click OK in order for Sequence Generator to go away and do that Meridian flip. If you've never done it before, it's the first time you're going to be doing it, I'd highly recommend that you tick that, certainly for the first few times. Once you've done it and you know it works and you're happy with it, you can untick that box and it will happily go away and do it for you. And there's lots of considerations that you need to give around Meridian flips. You know, is your cable loom nice and tidy, for example? Is anything going to snag or likely to snag? The other thing that you can also do is put a pause after the Meridian flip. Where is it? Auto center, which would be pause before auto center, and that would give you a chance to adjust the counterweights if you needed to. Auto center for the Meridian flip. So that uses the plate solving functionality, and what that will do is it will take an image before the flip, it will do the flip, it will take an image after the flip, plate solve, and then go through a plate solve routine in order to get your target back into the center of the frame, hopefully. A lot of that depends on polar alignment. Good accurate polar alignment is key to getting a good Meridian flip and a good plate solve. Again, we'll talk more about that a bit later on in subsequent sessions. Sync behavior. When you are using the planetarium, and I will show you that in a little while, you can connect obviously the planetarium program to Sequence Generator. When I do a synchronization either on the planetarium program, what do you want to do with that? Do you want it to sync? Do you want it to offset the target? Do you want it to offset the scope, or actually not do anything? There are different strategies for using that, but 9 times out of 10, it would be sync. Mount settling time tells sequence generator how long you want to essentially pause anything before carrying on with an image or a sequence after slewing the mount. And here is where you put your scope focal length and your aperture in there. The last 4 boxes then are so nudging. If you want to nudge at high speed, how quickly does that move? If you want to nudge it at a lower speed, how quickly does that move? And you can choose between those 2. And do you need to reverse north, south, and east and west? If so, you can tick those boxes. One thing you'll probably notice as I go through is there's lots of little tooltip pop-ups on a lot of the options here in Sequence Generator. They do stay there for a decent amount of time, so it's easy to read. And I have to say also that the help system is pretty good in Sequence Generator. Plate solving then. Plate solving is the art of working out where you are. Quite simply. So Sequence Generator will take an image and it will compare that image with a known set of plates against the sky and hopefully accurately work out exactly where your scope is pointing. Again, if you're going to use the auto centering functions, you definitely need a plate solver. And I would certainly recommend that you do investigate the plate solver. I will quickly show you that before we close today, but it does make an awful lot of difference, especially as I say with Meridian flips, and if you're using sequences with multiple targets as well. The auto center bit I mentioned just a minute ago, you can tell Sequence Generator how many times you want to give that a go, and it will repeat that number of times until an error is less than a determined number of pixels. And if you're using a rotator, you can also put an error in terms of degrees for the rotator as well. You can use a specific filter for your plate solving. And once you've got your filter set up, you can select from those. And if you are going to use blind solving, plate solving, that's where you tick that and you can set that up as well. Blind solving is if the inbuilt plate solver, and the one that I have installed, because it's the one I'm used to, is the Plate Solve 2, which comes with Sequence Generator. You do need to download the catalogs as I showed you earlier, but that comes with it. If for some reason that fails, and it can fail for various reasons, if your location is essentially wrong or being reported incorrectly, and the software thinks that you are too far away from your target, it will fail to plate solve. So what blind plate solve does, as its name possibly suggests, is it doesn't use any of the location numbers, the RA or the declination settings. It will go away and do a full scale comparison and try and work out exactly where you are. You can, if you've got internet connection, you can do it remotely via the Astronomy Net server, or you can do it locally, which I have set up on my machine here, and I'll show you that in a little while, which is just as good. And depending on how bad the error is, it can take 30, 40, 50 seconds in order to come up with a solution. The plate solving, when that work, is generally just a few seconds in order to do the plate solve. It's quite an involved process. Again, we'll cover that in a more advanced topic, I think. Auto guiding, then, as its name suggests, is where you set up the parameters in order to do the auto guiding. Now, this assumes that you have an auto guider installed, which I don't on this at this precise moment in time. It supports PhD2, it supports AstroArt, MetaGuide. You can do it directly to the mount or SkyGuide. But once you've selected it, you can then set up, again, perhaps we'll do PhD. Yeah, we can do a PhD, not today, but we will do a PhD session as well. Lots of options on that. Do you want to stop the auto guider when the sequence completes or fails? stop the auto guider when you're waiting for the next target, pause it during an autofocus, and so on and so on. Lots of options on that. I'll be honest, I've only ever used it with PhD2, and it just works. It works out of the box. It works really, really well. Again, PhD2 needs the correct settings for that to work: size of your camera and sensor, focal length of your guide scope, and all those sorts of things. But it is, as far as I'm concerned, touch wood, it really does just work. Under other, then the last option here is where if you've got some more exotic objects, you've got a flat box, you can use a flat box. If you've won the lottery and you bought one of the Omnitac flat boxes or the Art Sky ones, you can set those up in there. If you've got a camera rotator, that can go in there. If you're running it in an observatory and you can connect all your observatory equipment to sequence generator, or a safety monitor. When my observatory is actually up and running, I have a cloud sensor from AAG CloudWatcher. It's a cloud and rain sensor, so I have that set up in my observatory. So if it goes cloudy, or indeed it goes wet, starts to rain, sequence generator will perform some action. Usually it parks the scope, but you can get it to do some other things as well. If you've got an environmental sensor, you can have that, so temperature and humidity. First Light Optics sell a range of little, I think they're called Meteo, is that right, Grant? Have I got the right?
The Astromici?
Astromici, yes, yeah. A little range of environment sensors. Again, temperature, humidity, dew point, always very useful. And the last box says variables, and I have absolutely no idea what that box is for. I've never had to use it. If anybody does know, I'd be really interested. Oh. So, any questions on the profile manager? There's a lot to the profile manager because there are a lot of options that can be set up for that. Again, to cope with lots of different environments. And before I forget, I will click save. And the way that you use those profiles when you are creating, in fact, let me go back into that and just show you something. When we are creating sequences, there's an option there where you can tick to make one of the profiles a default for a new sequence. So if I set the Canon template and put a tick into that and say that is going to be my default template, and I'll save that. When I click a new sequence, actually, the thing I've just thought of is, let us do that. There we go. Save. No. Canon. There we go. Save. Right. And the reason for that will become apparent. So click on new sequence. Here comes my sequence, and as you can see, because I set it as default, the Canon EOS camera is set as the camera. If I want to change that, if I don't want to use that particular equipment profile, I could close the sequence. I could create a new sequence with a profile, click on that, and then go and click the profile that I actually did want. Click OK, and then it loads in the profile for me. However, a slightly quicker way of doing that, and I'll just create a new one again, is to apply a profile to a sequence. If you remember at the very beginning, I said that the profiles are like a template, and they don't link to your sequences. So once I've got a sequence with a particular profile associated with it, if I go and change that equipment profile, Sequence Generator does not go back to those saved sequences and update them. But you could do that essentially manually by using this menu option to apply the profile to the sequence. And if I click on that, which profile do I want? Well, I want that one, please. And then Sequence Generator will go on and set all those options up for me. Does that make sense? Is that clear enough? Good. Okay.
Yep.
in the sequence itself, then this is where you'd set up your target, and in the gear icon, you've got some options for that target. I haven't got any of the equipment connected at this precise moment in time, but the RA and declination of your target. And if you don't know those, you can, and you've got an internet resource where you do know what they are, you can populate that from that resource. So I can click on that button. It asks me for the image URL that I want to go and populate. And here's one that I created earlier, he says. No, there isn't. Why isn't there one? There it is. So I went on to for Christ's sake, Telescopius earlier, which used to be called something else, and I've completely forgotten what it was called now. There we go. So I can take that URL and I can paste it into that box that was in Sequence Generator. Sequence Generator will then go and fetch those coordinates for me and populate my RA and DEC for me. So I don't need to think about it. I've got to worry about it too much. I've got to try and figure out where it is. That will do that, and it will do that from AstroBin or Flickr as well. Obviously, the image needs to have the appropriate fits keywords in it so that the Sequence Generator knows where to get those data from. Couple of options here. Do you want to slew to and then center on the target when the target starts, or indeed just slew to it? And the difference being slew to it will just literally slew to that target. The slew and center will then do the plate solving bit and then try and get your target smack in the center of the sensor. So your option, or indeed you can get it to actually not do anything. Time constraints. Again, I don't use these time constraints myself, or indeed the planning tools. So I'm not going to go on too much about those. But you can set start and end times on your targets. It's useful if you're running multiple targets in one sequence. Then you're essentially waiting for target number 2 to rise. You could be imaging target number 1. And you can say, well, you know, I want you to image that between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And then at 2 a.m., I want you to go on to target number 2. So that's probably where you'd use things like that. The planning tools also allows you to do it by altitude, apparently. Again, I don't make use of those. If anybody does, I'd perhaps be a bit more interested, but I don't use those at this.
We use those in Spain because we don't image anything below 30 degrees, just because from a quality point of view, why bother? And also up to about 10 degrees, you get the sides of the observatory. So we set it to 30 degrees, and it's very handy.
Okay, so is it just a pointy clicky type approach then, Grant?
Well, what I tend to, you can point and click, but I tend to just type at the start at. So if you close that bit.
Yeah.
At the start at, I just wang 30 in there, and it calculates it for you. So if you tab to the next thing, it will change the time. There you go, and then tick start at, and it does it.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay, so it calculates the altitude and the time. Okay, got you.
The only annoying thing is every day it doesn't keep adjusting it back to 30, so I have to go in every day and knock it. You know, it'll creep up by 0.4 degrees every day. I have to just knock it back every day to 30, or I lose 4 minutes of runtime.
Oh, okay, understand. All right. Thank you. And if you are using a camera rotator, you can enable the camera rotator and tell it to rotate to a specific angle prior to the target starting. There's various other options. If you right click on that target, there's a lot more options. So you can easily duplicate it, delete it. You can reset progress on your particular target. So you might look at the light frames after a night's imaging and decide they're a load of old rubbish. And actually, I need to restart that because I didn't take the Bartinoff mask on. Hands up if you've done that before. Mm-hmm. And I need to do that again. You can click on that and basically reset the progress for the entire target. And a couple of useful things: you can copy events to and from targets as well. So like I say, if you're doing a multiple target sequence, but essentially your events are the same, i.e. the same number of red, green and blue frames, rather than going through the process of manually setting all those up, once they're set, copy them over to target number 2. It makes it much quicker to do that. The event itself then, so this is where we set up actually which events we are going to run. And by the way, you can set how many events you want in a by default in a sequence in an option setting. What type of frame it is it a light frame, dark frame, flat frame or bias frame? The filter that you're going to use, connect to that. Why am I seeing no filters, Darren? What is going on? I set filters up, didn't I?
You changed the profile
I did, didn't I?
to the Canon. Brownie.
Yeah, you see what I did? I've managed to overwrite. There we go. I've managed to overwrite my profile. Let's not go through all that pain again. Let's just set up a couple of filters quickly. We'll say OK, save.
I was watching.
I need to reapply that profile.
Well,
oh no, there we go. I did the wrong profile, didn't I? There we go. Right, light, red, light, green, light, blue. I won't bother with any luminance actually. Thanks very much. If you want to put a suffix on the end of your frames, then you can do. And obviously you set the exposure time. And you can type in a number if you wanted to, 600 seconds, or you could just pick from a predefined list your binning factor and repeat as obviously the number of frames that you want. And you could go through each one of those and set those up, or you could do a little trick and just double click on the title and it will set, oh don't do that to me, double click on the title and it will set all of those to those same values.
You are kidding me.
No, same on repeat, it will do that as well.
Oh.
It was worth coming just for that one thing then, Grant, wasn't it?
Absolutely was.
And guess what? Same for the binning as well. So so you could do that. So, sorry, mate. The other thing that you can also do while you're in here as well, and again, talking about the frames that you've taken, if you go back and look at the frames that you've shot from a previous night, you can double click on this end number here and you could change that. So actually I've already captured 10 frames. I don't want to capture those 10 frames again. And Sequence Generator will know that actually it's a third of the way through that particular event and it will carry on. Or obviously you've done those 10 and as I said before, actually they were rubbish. I'm going to reset that back to 0 and it will start again for you. That's very useful, I have to say. Honestly, I've made a lot of use of that in the past. So coming back up here then is where the equipment is. And so you've got 2 buttons here. You've got connect and disconnect and properties for those. Obviously, as you just saw there, you can't look at the properties while you're connected. So you'd need to disconnect and then you can bring up the various properties for your bit of equipment. And I will just show you on the little drop down box here is then where you could go and pick out all those extra bits that appeared under the other tab in the equipment profile. Tab it again to close that up. And the other shortcut is rather than clicking each one of those individually, if you press Control-Alt-C, it will do connect to all equipment, at which point you say yes. Yeah, okay, thank you. And when you do a Control-Alt-D for disconnect, it will do the opposite. Do you want to disconnect everything? And you say yes, and it will disconnect it all for you. You saw there a little message pop up saying that my profile needs an autofocuser and PhD2 was not set. And I mentioned again that that the equipment profile is a template. And if we click on this button here, this icon here, which is called the control panel, we can now access all of those parameters and options within our sequence. So again, the equipment profile has been copied over to the sequence, and we can now make adjustments should we so want to. So I can now go into auto guide and say, no, actually, I didn't mean to do that. I can turn that off. Those are off. I haven't got plate solving set up, so I'm going to turn plate solving off. Actually, I'll leave that one on. And we can then try again to run. Let's connect everything. Control Alt Connect. Yes, please. And then we can, when we're all ready and we're happy, we can click run, and sequence generator will immediately crash. No, it doesn't crash. It comes up with a whole bunch of warning messages. So what it's basically saying is my target has got location data, but I haven't turned on auto centering. Is that okay? Yes, that's fine. Thanks very much. You'll also notice that on the warnings, you can put a tick in to say don't show again. Yes. Again, I'd recommend for the first few times that you leave that unticked until you get used to it, and you've got your equipment profile actually properly set for yourself. Oh, here's another one. It needs the use of plate solving, but none are selected. Please select one. Okay. Sequence will now attempt an automated peer flip. Okay. Well, good luck with that. And now it's aborted the sequence. So back into the control panel, what have I forgotten to do? Plate solving. Oh, because I've got these ticked probably. Use blind solving and use the filter. So let's turn those off. Let's run sequence again. Oh yes, I know about that, and that's fine. Thank you. Oh, now what? Oh, still a plate solving. Why am I still plate solving? Back into the control panel. It can take a few iterations to get your head around all the various options. Use auto Meridian flip. There we go. So it wasn't in the plate solve at all. It was auto Meridian flip. So I should have read the error message actually, because it did say that, didn't it? RTFS. Read the flipping screen. Okay, let's try again. Run sequence. Yes, that's fine. Hey, I've got a green bar. Wait. Oh, now we've got the thing turned on. It's going to wait until midnight because I've got that. I think we enabled that. Yep. Start at 10 degrees, midnight tonight. Well done. Okay. Pause that. If you pause your sequence, as you saw that I did there, you then get a couple of options. You can pause and keep the current frame, i.e. it will finish taking the current picture, abort it straight away. And then there's an option that says run end of sequence options. And that will be things like it will park the telescope, it will turn off the cooler, and if enabled, warm up the sensor for you. If you've got an observatory connected and you've told it to rotate the dome, close the slit, all that sorts of things, those are the sorts of things that sequence generator is then going to do. I don't want it to do that. I'm going to say just abort straight away, please. I will turn that back off. And then now you'll see it says resume sequence as opposed to start sequence. So it knows we've already started the process and we are in a paused state. So I can then just simply click on resume, and it should now, yes, that's fine. There we go. Setting the red filter, integrating my target. Obviously this is on a simulator, so we're not going to see too much at all. And I set that for 5 seconds, for 5 minutes. At the bottom of the screen, there are a bunch of little icons and pictures. Hopefully you can see those on your screen. But basically, we've got a tab that says Focus, Target, Scope. Oh, hi, Carol. Thanks for joining. Focus, Target, Scope, Guider, Recovery, and Safety. And these little icons will light up according to whatever's going on, so you can see exactly what's going on at a glance. So if it's doing a focus routine, it will come on. If it's imaging the target, there should be, it's all in green, so you probably can't see it, but there's a light on down there. It will show you that the scope is connected, and there's a running clock there which shows me the position of the scope, I think that is. If I'm guiding, if it's in a recovery mode, if sequence generator comes across an error, again, it could be that it is not plate solved. It could be that the camera driver is hung as comma's thrown a wobbly and it can't get a reading from the camera. It will go into a recovery state. And I'll talk you through that in just a second. I'll show you some options, but it will try and recover over a period of time. And if it can, all is good and it will carry on. Otherwise, it will stop indefinitely, and then you've got to go and figure out what is going on. And then the safety, if you're using, again, something like the Cloud Watcher or a rain sensor, and that detects there's an issue, that will go red. Safety comes on, sequence generator will then, again, go into a recovery state. Those states, if you like, are sitting under tools and options under sequence options. On failure, attempt to move to the next target, restart the sequence when the conditions are safe. Oh, that's a new one. Well, that's very good, actually. Previous versions, if it stopped because of unsafe conditions, it would just stop. And I know the guys at Main Sequence have been doing some work on automation, so that's really quite useful to see. So it would now, by look at that, attempt to restart the sequence when the clouds have gone. That's very good. Do you want to capture calibration frames even if the sequence fails to complete? So again, if you're using automated flat box, for example, you might have already taken a bunch of light frames. You still want the calibration, you still want the flats for those. So sequence generator will make sure that they get run. It won't ignore those calibration frames. Attempt to automatically recover the sequence. So this is what I've just been talking about. Sequence generator will try and recover it every 10 minutes over the next 90 minutes, and clearly you can change those values. If after 90 minutes it's not recovered the sequence, it's then going to stop and run the end of sequence options. Gosh, there's a lot to this. One thing I've not shown you, actually, up on the right-hand side of the screen here, there is a notification center, and you can see all the bad mistakes I've been making over the course of the evening. But you get information as well as errors appearing up in here, or indeed informational ones. So we changed the filter, we changed some stuff on the events, we changed some stuff on the sequence. So in that options box, you can determine what goes in there. Do you want information? Do you want light image complete? Do you want alerts, warnings, and errors? If you make use of, there's also, and again, not one for tonight, but there's also a notification utility with Sequence Generator that you can use. External notifications, which you can use to send you emails at various points, or there's a product called Good Night System, which is from the people that make the AAG Cloud Watcher, and you can have a client app on your telephone. There we go. Look at the camera down on the telephone, and that makes very loud noises if Sequence Generator sends an error to the client. Very useful if you're fast asleep and something goes wrong and you want to be alerted to it. Or again, that you can have, hello? Oh, there we go, there's my image. Oh yes, there we go. Or you can have it send emails to a whole variety of email addresses. It used to be a purchase add-on, and I think it probably still is a purchase add-on if you do decide to buy Sequence Generator, but it's pretty worth it, I have to say, especially if you're like me and you like to go to sleep while your equipment is doing what it should be doing and taking pretty pictures. There's the obviously simulated.
The review's big.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, why don't you? Oh, probably because of that. Let's get rid of that. There we go.
Oh.
Going to tell you what it was. it's a big mess anyway. Anyway, that's it's what happens when you use simulators, I suppose. No, never mind. Okay. Oh no, we were looking at the notifications thing, weren't we? Tools, notifications. Yes. So again, or you can have it output to text files if you want to see exactly what's going on over the course of the night. There is log files that Sequence Generator creates, and under the help, you can click on the button to view the log file. However, what I find is everything gets put into that, and it can be quite tricky to try and work your way through exactly what is going on. So sometimes it is easier to put those alerts and notifications out to a text file, which is a bit easier to go and read through. Also under the options, one thing which I didn't actually cover earlier. I won't go through these in huge amounts of detail, but these are sort of global options, if you like. But one thing that is quite interesting is this thing called the file name pattern, and you can customize what that looks like. If you click on key, you get a pop-up box with all the different parameters, if you like, that you can insert into your file names, whether it's the target name or the camera name or the binning mode or the event number and so on. There's a whole list of those. If you put slashes in, backslashes in, then it will treat the first one as a folder name before it creates the actual file name itself. So on this one, I'm creating a folder with the actual file target name. I'm then creating another folder with the filter type, i.e. light, bias, dark, or flats. And then I'm creating a file with the target name. What the hell was that one? DDS, which I now can't find.
Date of sequence
start. There we go.
Date
of sequence. Thank you, Grant. Well done. Date of sequence start, which is different to date. If you use DT, then it would be the current date. And obviously, if you tick over to midnight, you'll end up with a day difference in your file names. So if you use DS, it's the date that you hit the run button. And then that %3 puts a frame number with in a triple number format. But you can customize that to however you like. The point being that you set that here. When you go into your equipment profile manager, you've also got the option to set it there as well. If you set it here, it will override that global option. Okay, so your choice of how you do that. You might, for whatever reason, want to put these files in a completely different place to where you would do normally. So you can, and it's exactly the same as it is on that. But if you set it here, it will ignore it from the global options. And one thing I did say that I would show you is the plate solving in action. So let me open up. Oh, the other thing that you can also do with an image as well, with a sequence as well, by the way. Here's my sequence. I can add in different files. So you might want to add some notes into your sequence, but also you might want to add a reference image. So let me go and find, which is in a JPEG format. I should have thought of this one before I went ahead and did this, but you can then go and find a picture that makes some sort of, you know, I'm not going to find a JPEG picture now, don't you? That's in the raw data, that's why. No, why did I even do that? Pictures. Let's go to Hunstanton instead. There we go. There's my put a description for the picture. Beach. Okay, done. And that picture is what is that? That's my son when he was, I don't know, 8, I think. But that picture is then associated with your sequence. So next time you load that sequence in, that picture's there. So very useful to have a reference against your sequence, so you can see what it is that you're aiming at, I suppose. Open image. So let me go and find this image. Let's just do a screen stretch on that so you can see that. So clearly that has got various bits of information. Oh, I know why. The sequence is still running. Let's stop that. Thank you. Show fits headers. You can't see them because they're on the wrong screen. Don't know why they're doing that. So lots of information as you would expect in the fits header, but obviously critically is the position, the RA and the deck. There we go, those two things there. So if I ask Cygnus Generator to do a plate solve, you can see that my solve button, that's why my solve button is not enabled, because I was showing that off earlier. Let's put that back on. Blind settings is local. Thank you. Now we'll do a plate solve. Plate solve, thank you. Okay, so now I can solve. And Cygnus Generator is going to pass all this information over to the plate solver and try and get it to do exactly that. So we'll click on solve. There is plate solve 2.29, and that's done. It took only a couple of seconds to do that, and it's found it. Okay, jolly good. If on the other hand, when it's done a plate solve, you can then, Cygnus Generator will then, if you like, you can use it as that target, the location details for that target, which again is very useful if you're importing a picture and you've done a plate solve on it. Yeah, that's what I want. I can now assign that to my target, and then that's set ready for you next time. If, however, either it fails or you don't know what the location is, you can, and you've got it set up, you can do a blind solve. And this probably won't take very long either. But if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the notification of the main screen, you'll say is now doing something called uploading and solving on AN server. So AN server is the local astronomy.net server, and indeed it didn't take very long at all. It has done a plate solve. I will go through that in a bit more detail, I think, certainly the plate solving bit and how to set up AN server, because it does take a little bit of configuration, and it also takes some downloads in order to download the index files for your particular camera and telescope. And there's a way to figure out exactly what those files are that you need to download. But again, I think we'll leave that one for a second session, a more advanced topic. I've whizzed through all of this at a fair pace of knots, and it's still taken us an hour and a quarter to get through it all. So has anybody got any immediate questions or anything they'd like me to go over again, or indeed look at something that we've not actually touched on yet?
Can you hear me, Daz?
I can, yes.
Okay, so at the moment I'm using it with carte.cl and syncing to carte.cl.
Yeah.
But it's quite neat to be able to just pre-program a star like Vega and set that as a target, so that you just get it to slew and plate solve on Vega, and then it's all synced that way, and you don't need to rely on carte.cl.
Yes.
But what I'd really like to do is have Vega as a target, and then once I've done Vega, instantly move on to whatever I'm wanting to image. But I can't sort out how to do it without just setting up one target, doing it, deleting that target, pulling in the actual target I want to image, and then starting that as a new target. Is there any way of linking into targets into a sequence.
Yeah, you can have multiple targets in a sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Whenever I try to do it, it won't let me.
So which bit?
Right. So
let's do this then, Martin. So target one is Vega. No idea what.
So let's say my next target is M57. Say.
Okay. So hold on a second. Okay. So that's then M57.
Which I'll have M57 loaded as saved as a sequence, which I may have done from the framing and Mosaic wizard.
Right.
And then I want to pull it in to have Vega and then M57.
Okay, so yeah, so I think the only way you're going to do that is to have multiple targets in the one sequence, Martin. You can't say now go off and load that sequence after completing the Vega bit. So you could import your Vega sequence and add a new target at the top of it. Import your M57 sequence and add a new target at the top of it for Vega. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've tried using that little plus button to add something, but it instantly overwrites.
It won't let you do that if the sequence is running.
Yeah, is it? Not if it's already running.
No, it's I don't know. I'll have to have another look, but it's causing a minor irritation only because I've had to do them as completely. That's the other thing. It's a bit confusing. Target sequences and events. So sometimes in the middle of the night when I'm getting frostbite, my head gets a bit fuzzy around it all.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It can get a little bit confusing as to what's going on. Obviously, the indicators here tell you what the current target is actually running. So as you can see here, Vega is the one. I'm surprised that you can get errors then, because it's a relatively straightforward process just to add these targets in. I'm guessing what you would do is you would just have, let's say, 5-second exposure. Leave that there on a single. Let's reset that progress there. Thank you. Yeah. Single exposure on the Vega target. You'd obviously have it set to slew and then center. So when you click on that, it will go away and do that, and it will do that plate solve, and it will repeatedly do that plate solve until it is satisfies the conditions that you set up. And then, because it's only one frame, it's then immediately going to go on to target 2. So again, you would have that slew and center on target 2, which in your case would be M57, of course. And then you would have because it actually wants, because I've given it a name, it actually wants some data in there now. They would go on to M57, and that's where you would have your proper event sequence, or your proper sequence of events set up.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah.
Why do you need to do that, though, Martin? What does that give you by doing that?
Some people use that technique to do focus first on, say, Vega, a nice bright thing, and then slew to the target.
You can use CartCL and just ask it to go to that and sync it. It's just keeping it all within one. It just seems a little bit needed to have it all within sequence.
Yeah, there's another bit of software, Martin, called well, as you know, CCD Commander, and in CCD Commander you can essentially do the same thing. You can build up a if you like, a set of stars that you go away and literally just do a plate solve and sync on before actually getting to your main target. And you could do. There's no reason why that shouldn't work. It should do exactly the same thing. You'll just end up with one frame of Vega every time you run the sequence. But there's no reason why that shouldn't work. I can't see why anyway.
Yeah.
One of the issues you can have with syncing between CDC and SG Pro and using EQ mod is that your mount will start fighting the position for when you're trying to do plate solving. Because one system tells it to go to one position, and the other software thinks it needs to go to somewhere else, and it can then be problematical.
Okay, understood. One of the things that and I have come across that. Sorry, was that Julian, by the way?
Yes.
Excellent, good. I have come across that before. So I got a little data sheet, if you like, with all my different locations on. So again, I have all of those set up. They are set up in my EQ mod for exactly the same set of locations. They are set up in my planetarium for exactly the same set of locations. So it's not 100% foolproof, but it's bloody idiot proof. And that idiot, of course, is me.
No problem. Is there
one thing I would like.
Go on. Is there a does it have a manual rotator in it now?
It has, if you like, the functionality is there. Where is it for the rotator? So if you put a tick on to say rotate the camera to 20 degrees,
but it doesn't solve, then it plate solves, and before you go on, it comes up and says you need to rotate your thing 30 degrees clockwise or anti-clockwise.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it does, Dave. So if you don't have the rotator, it comes up with a message saying you need to rotate your camera. So that's one way of getting around that.
It works really well, because all you need to do, all you need to do is get a piece of paper and put 360 degrees around it, like a clock face, around your focuser. Just go out and undo it, and you can move it. Just put a white mark. I've got a white mark on there.
Do you know what? I'd never thought of that.
There is actually I did do a video of me doing that. But, it's idiot proof. Well, it has to be in my case. But.
Do you know, I'd never thought of that. I have rotated in the past, and of course you'll get to, I don't know, 24 degrees, and then you overshoot by another 16 degrees, and you're back by 8 degrees, and by the time you finish, the sun's coming up. It's I never thought of that.
If you're doing just a normal single frame shot of Andromeda or whatever, it doesn't really matter.
No.
You do what you like. But if you're doing if you're doing a mosaic, it's critical, because now you can frame your image just how you like say the Heart Nebula, which is a blooming great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Usually, if you get two panels, you rotate it. Awesome.
Very good. I didn't show that, and if people don't mind, I will quickly just flash it up. Is that there is again? I think it's a bolt-on purchase for this, but
not anymore.
Is it not? Is it all included now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, even better. Is this thing called the Framing and Mosaic Wizard? I'm going to just copy that URL again. So this lets you, and this is useful not just for mosaics, but also for single things as well. But if I put that URL in to that, tell it I want a 4-degree field of view, click on fetch, it will go away and it will pull back that for me. And what you can then do, gosh, I've not used it for a long time, this looks a little different. You can, based on your camera field of view, is you can set up, you can just draw a square and set up a mosaic. Yes, that might take it a little while to work through, to be fair. But once you have got that, let's just make that a little more sensible.
Sort of 2 by 2 or something.
Yeah, 2 by 2. There we go. Once you have got that, you can set up what overlap percentage you want and all that sort of stuff, and where you want to rotate, how you want that to be rotated. You can move that to wherever you need to move that to. And once you are ready, you click on the Create Sequence button. Give it a name. I can't remember what it was, but that sounds familiar. Do I want to append it or replace the targets in the sequence? What am I going to do when I start? Do I want to slew and then center? Yeah, go on then. Rotate or validate the camera angle. So again, Dave, that comes back to what we've just been talking about. And again, associate the working image with the sequence. So if I tick that, success, thank you very much, close that. And now I've got 4 targets for those, for those 4 panes. And in each one of those, the location details have now been set up. And as Dave quite rightly pointed out before, the rotation is now set for each one of those as well. So 7 degrees for that one. They're probably going to be 7 degrees, but there we go. But it sets that rotation in there. And again, because we've got that box ticked, it would come up with an alert to say you need to rotate the camera to that particular angle. You'll notice that the events themselves are not set up, so you still need to do that. But again, I'm going to just do the top 2 lights, red, green. I'm going to annoy Grant again and say I want
that really has annoyed me.
5-minute exposure. Oh yeah, I'll do all of them. I want 20 of those, and I'll just double click up. Yeah, I'll do all of them. Yeah, that's fine. There you go, mate. Having done that, I then don't want to have to go through each of those other 4 sequences. So I'm going to right click on that and say copy target events to. And it will say, well, where do I want to copy those over to? Well, I want to do all of those. Click OK. Yes. And now, give it a minute. And then my subsequent targets are now all correctly set with all the exposures and the repeats. So I haven't got to go and set each one of those up individually. Good, eh? Even better than that is included in the bundle price. So I remember when I bought my subscription or my license, it was a separate purchase. It wasn't very dear. I think it was only about $30, I think, something like that. So it's good that it's included in the price now. Al Pope has raised her hand.
You should be able to unmute yourself, Carol, if you want to ask something.
Push the space bar.
Nope.
Nope.
Can't hear you, Carol.
I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Yay.
You can't see me though. This webcam's too magnified. You just about
Okay.
glasses.
Oh yes, so your glasses, yeah.
Take them off. No, I haven't got any questions. I'm afraid I came in late to this because I was watching the thing on NASA.
Oh, I'll start again then.
No, I'll watch it another day. I'll catch up on it.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I'm just so glad I've managed to get the computer working this time.
As indeed are we, Carol. As indeed are we.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah, thanks, Carol. So again, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully it's giving you an idea of what is in Sequence Generator. There's certainly more than we've shown tonight, but I will do some other sessions, I think, on the more detailed bits, the plate solving, the auto-focusing. What was the other thing I was going to do? Auto-focusing. We could look at more complex flats. That was the other one. Yeah, well done, Grant. Using the flats wizard in order to calculate your flat timings, and we can certainly look at more complex sequences, Martin, to get your alignment star bit working. That'll be good.
On that, so just briefly, if I append if I replace rather than append, does it keep that information the next time you load that sequence?
If you replace, yes. So yeah, providing you save the sequence, yes, absolutely.
So I'm wondering if because I've selected replace when I've actually set the sequence up, saved it. So load it up. That's what's happened. Thank you. So.
Yes, that's a very important. That is a very important button that causes an awful lot of constellations when you. Oh, he's doing it again. Why are you doing that? When you go to create your sequence, do you want to append or replace? No target. The other thing that the framing wizard does, it basically caches those searches, so it doesn't need to keep running off to stuff to go and find it again. Create. Oh, now I need to draw the thing. Let's do that. There we go. Create sequence. Replace or append. By default, it's set to append. I think it was set to append. Yeah. But if you got replaced, then absolutely it's going to overwrite what you've already got in there. So do take care.
Subsequently, when you load it, every time you load it, it's going to keep that setting.
Indeed. Yeah, providing obviously that you save, make sure you save. If I click append on that now, and then go back, created 12 new targets. So now I've got all those things in my sequence.
A lot of late nights.
Yeah, there's probably more late nights than I've got left to run them. That's the problem with the UK weather, I think, isn't it? But there we go. There we go. Okay. Any other questions?
Could you get in touch with them and ask them why they don't use the Altair Astro SDK?
Okay.
Setting up the camera is just a nightmare because you got two different scales. The ASCOM scale doesn't relate. You know, when you did the ZWO, it came with all the gain values.
Yeah.
You click it and away you go. But on the Altair and the ASCOM,
under here, these gains here, Dave.
Yeah. Well, under ASCOM, the scale is different. So the unity gain on the 269C that I use is 283. Well, you can't to convert the scale in ASCOM that they use to 283 is mind-boggling. You need a vernier. Times that people come up with that question, I never know why they did that. And the other niggle, I'm only going to I'll get 2 in, and I'll leave you alone.
That's right.
Why they don't link to Stellarium, so you can drag a target in from that. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. I think that's probably.
It would just go fetch it from Stellarium.
Yeah, I think that's probably more to do with the way in which Stellarium has been written than anything else. But it's a good question. I don't think I've seen that come up on the sequence generator forums before. But no, valid points, Dave. Valid points. I can't answer either of those at this precise moment in time, but there we go. There we go. Okay, well, I hope that was of some value. We've solved Martin's problem, and Grant's learned something that's a forehead slap moment. So,
and Carol's got her computer working.
Carol's got her computer working, even though the camera's zoomed in at.
Well, it's a new webcam I've got, and there's no way of panning out. It's just too close up.
You need longer arms, Carol.
Oh, well, it's not that. I need to sit too far from it to be seen at a long scale, and I can't see what's on the computer. I just want to try my old webcam out, so I might cut myself off.
Okay.
No,
well,
because it is a big program. There's a lot in it.
There is, and I think what's one of the key things for me is that the guys are clearly doing development. And plenty of it. The other program I mentioned before, CCD Commander, I bought years ago before Sequence Generator came out, but it seems that development has come to an end on that, which is slightly sad. I have to say it wasn't as feature rich as this because it depended on external tools, particularly MaximDL. So it did get to be quite an expensive option. So, oh, there we go. That's better.
That's better. That's my old webcam. Yeah.
Jolly good. We can see more than just an eyeball now.
Yeah.
So there we go. So you're right. It is a big program. Having said all that, I'm interested to see the talk that's coming on in a couple of weeks' time, and Grant will no doubt remind me of the date. We've got somebody from Nina showing that particular piece of software as well.
We've got Stefan from Nina coming up on the 30th of August, so we're a little way away.
Oh, okay, well, a couple of weeks.
But 2 weeks away, we've got Mabula from Astral Pixel Processor as well, coming to do a talk. So both should be quite interesting.
Yeah, Mabula's good fun.
Cool. I should look forward to seeing both of those. I think, particularly the Nina one. It's again, being a free and open source project, it's going to be interesting to see how that compares against a, if you like, commercially paid for bit of software.
I think the feeling with Nina is that because it is open source, the development pace on it is far exceeding anything else. So, you know, a sequence generator, the guys, I don't think they do it full time.
No, they don't.
You know, so the amount of development they can realistically do is limited.
No, it's only one guy does Nina. There is just one bloke.
Well, it is open source though, isn't it? So you can contribute, but I don't know how much.
There are some guys that help out, but it's mainly, was it Isborn, isn't it? Isborn, whatever his name is. Must admit, I use that now.
No, well, I must have been in the exact opposite. I've heard lots of things about it, but I've never actually used it.
Two different approaches.
Yeah. And then there's this other one that's I can't say recently come onto the market, but it's becoming more popular. I think is one called, I'm going to say Voyager.
Voyager, yeah.
From a guy in Italy. Again, I've not even seen that one. Let alone used it. I know some people have been trialing it, and I know there's various conversations on the forum about it. So it's interesting to see these different approaches that people are taking to help us in our journeys on automated nirvana for our astro imaging. And of course, you still forget to leave to take the Barton mask off. So I haven't found anything yet that solves that problem.
Then wonder why you can't play it solve.
Okay, guys, thanks very much indeed. Great to see you. Thank you for all your participation and your questions. The dog has now just come in, so it must be time for a cup of tea.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye, guys. See you all soon.
Bye. Love to Lara.